and it's called The 415th Time. The first time we see them, we can't see their faces. Are they wearing masks? Paper mache? We are standing on a chair at the back of the Alpha Delt living room. Maybe we are a little fucked up. Probably, definitely, we are a little fucked up. The set is short, like only 5 or 6 songs, and very little actual music is played. Most of it is pre-recorded. All the cables are unplugged, only the vocals are live. Where are the instruments? Is this a joke? We don't want to let on that we aren't in the know, but we can't help ourselves. We can't possibly go home without being in the know. We look around the dance floor for the right person to ask how tired we are of these people, their clothing, their knowledge, when out of the fray emerges the cutie from Earth House, the violist, the one with the nose ring. We tap her sweaty shoulder and ask her who is on stage. Andrew and Ben, she informs us. The management. And as those opening notes of kids synth out impossibly simple, she reaches up and finds our hands and fights us down to the dance floor. We notice for the first time that she doesn't shave her armpits. How sexy are armpits? No laughter again. Yeah, I'm gonna cut that line. If you guys want to come sit, come sit. There's three seats right here. I'm Martha Grover. Andrew. It turns out we actually know Andrew. Andrew Van Weingarten. A miracle of a name. We don't know him well, but we do know him. This is how we remember it. A party at Earth House. So-and-so's birthday party a few months back. A sophisticated party. You guys need the microphone? No. Okay. I keep popping. A sophisticated party, mostly juniors and seniors with their eyes set on Brooklyn. We are excited to be there among them, to be invited. We are being careful not to drink too much or say anything too argumentative. The adorable viola player we've been making eyes at has just gone out back to smoke. We are on the verge of talking ourselves into following her there, when there in front of us is Andrew, just kind of leaning there against the doorway to the back porch, his hair piled up in this big Bob Dylan-esque tangle, except whereas Dylan's hair is like this impenetrable thing, Andrew's is lighter, finer, less Jewish somehow. He looks so young, does Andrew, so young, so lost. We wonder for a moment if he isn't somebody's abandoned pre-frosh, left to fend for himself at such a sophisticated gathering. But he doesn't seem nervous enough, doesn't give off that pre-frosh whiff, that desperate need to please. In fact, he seems pretty content to just hang around and look lost and wait for people like ourselves to notice him. Possibly, he's just incredibly stoned. Hey, we say. Hey, says Andrew. So you know so-and-so, we say. Yeah, says Andrew. What about so-and-so, we say. Yeah, says Andrew. Cool, we say. So actually, we say, don't let me stop you, says Andrew. It's just this girl, we say. She plays the viola. Don't let me stop you, he says again. And this is how we know Andrew Van Weingarten. We graduate 2 years ahead of the management. We don't have any idea how these things work, but it seems unlikely that they'll record an album or tour until they've got BAs under their belts. And so in the meantime, we find other bands to root for. We spend probably 10% of our paychecks going to shows and buying records. We never ask ourselves if we're getting our money's worth, because there's too much hope bound up in our behavior for us to want to look too closely at why we're investing so much of ourselves in strangers who may or may not believe in the words they're singing. Every now and then we try to remind ourselves that in the summer of 2005 we should look the management up on the internet and see how they're doing. But 2 years is a long time. San Francisco is 3,000 miles from Connecticut, and our girlfriend is making decisions we neither support nor understand. And our job requires getting up at 6 and tucking in our shirt and so many fucking smiles. We are so confused by everything we started going to church. It's not until September 2006 we were able to look them up. They've listed their genre on MySpace as Island or Jungle or Oasis, like the band, or some equally obnoxious thing. Where are they? Where else could they possibly be? They're in Brooklyn. Here's a black and white shot of Andrew and Ben, shirtless, leaning against a wall, always leaning, a wasted girl straight out of Vice, vamping it up between them. Andrew looks away from the girl, away from Ben, away from the camera. It's like he wants out of the photo. The urge to protect him is even stronger than it was 3.5 years ago. What drugs is he on now? What terrible things are these girls and these photographers doing to him? Why is he shirtless? We're using our roommate's computer while he's at work, using it without permission like we always do, because we're too cheap to pay for the internet, and still are. And we're afraid of getting viruses on our computer, and we're listening for his key in the lock because he's due home any minute, and we're trying to absorb all of this in a matter of seconds. The management still exists. They've recorded an EP. Most importantly, Andrew still looks like Andrew, which is to say, like our younger brother, if we had a younger brother who was infinitely cooler than ourselves. We return to the main page, scan the 5 or 6 song titles, and try not to think of all those friends and former classmates, those people we used to think possessed something special, something that needed to be heard, who have succumbed to law school, or India, or restaurants. We especially try not to consider the ones who have continued plugging away at their art, the same art they've always made, art that we are finally seeing with the clarity of our mid-20s, is not art. Please, we say, clicking on the first song, don't suck. Time to pretend gurgles to life. Our roommate's key enters the lock just as the drum machine and the vocals kick in. It's enormous and funny and beyond our wildest dreams. We've always wanted to hear this song. Our roommate finds us doing Running Man in the middle of his bedroom. We went to school with these guys. A few months after the breakup, we're down at the corner laundromat. Usually we just throw our clothes in the machines and walk back across Pine Street to our place to surf the net on our roommate's computer. But this time we notice this girl by the door reading the new Tin House, and we say, "Oh, isn't that from Portland?" And she says, "Yes." We tell her we're also from Portland. She gives us her number, we wait 4 days and call, and leave a message inviting her to a party. Ben was at that party. I don't remember that. 2 hours later, she calls back. We make plans to meet at City Lights before the party because she's never been to City Lights. And we've never been either. How crazy. And from City Lights, we take Bart into the Mission because she's never had a burrito at El Farolito, but we have. And they're the greatest burritos in the world. And then it's up to 22nd to the Lone Palm because of the white tablecloths. And we're not even halfway into our martinis before we're bringing up John Cheever and his swimmer, proposing that we should drink our way to the party, which is apparently somewhere in the Dubose Triangle or at least 2 martinis away. This is already an epic first date. There's all kinds of night left. At the party, our friends are delighted to see us with someone new, relieved that we finally left our sobby breakup bullshit at home. They keep our glasses full and tell the girl all sorts of crazy shit about us. And even though we forget the girl's name a couple times when we're making introductions, she doesn't seem to mind. At 2 a.m. we leave together. Even though it's misty out, it's not really wet, so we keep walking. Up to Visadero, across Geary. In a couple minutes we'll be back at the corner of Pine, back at the laundromat, and we've kind of lost track of the conversation because we're busy scrolling through our gin-soaked brains for some reason to invite her home without being creepy about it. But everything we can think of sounds kind of creepy. And we're already wondering how long we'll need to wait before calling her again when she laughs, this tight little laugh, and asks us if we want to come over and get high. Now we're on our bedroom floor, unlacing our shoes, a little nervous about foot odor because we're way overdue for a new pair of Chucks, plus all the walking. But when we pull the shoes off, we can't smell anything. We're about to join her on the bed when she asks us to put some music on. Her laptop's on the desk, hooked up to these giant speakers mounted on the wall. An impressive audio system, we tell her. Not to be sexist, but in our experience, girls don't usually invest in sound quality. Before we know it, we're describing going to school with the management, the show at Alpha Del. Andrew. We're swaying over the computer trying to type the wwws in when we hear the first whoosh of her lighter. We finally locate their MySpace page. These guys, we say, we're going to hear this song everywhere. The lighter whooshes again and the room fills with smoke. We click Time to Pretend. Here comes the chiming guitar, the chemical joy. It's clear now that the whole date has been about arriving here at this moment, playing the song for her, letting the song do the work, letting it say the things we can't say about how badly we need to let loose and move on and maybe even have sex tonight. We can hardly see her through all the smoke, and we sort of breaststroke through it and topple onto the bed next to her. We press our lips to her cheek, slide our fingers into her curly hair. Her cheek feels funny. We finally understand that her cheek is wet, that she is weeping. She's forgotten she's holding the pipe. Ashes are falling onto her pillow. We're supposed to say something comforting. We can't even remember her name. We leave San Francisco before MGMT comes through on tour. They're called MGMT now. They don't belong to us anymore. We moved back to Portland because it's time to get real, start over. Is that Portlandia?
Yeah.
People get real in Portland. We moved back to Portland because it's time to get real, to start over. But MGMT doesn't pick up on our signals. MGMT doesn't take no for an answer. MGMT keeps showing up at bars or house parties, and after a few months we quit trying to avoid them. For a while we look at their success as evidence that we shouldn't give up on our own stuff, but by the time their second album comes out we realize that they're basically one-hit wonders. We no longer feel much pressure to contribute anything particularly noteworthy to the universe. We stopped trying to take credit for Andrew Van Weingarten. What Andrew has done with his life has nothing to do with us. We're washed up at 29, we tell people. What a relief. We might even believe this to be true. We're certainly more relaxed than we used to be. One night that summer of being 29 and so relaxed, we're at a show and we realize that we know the bartender, a writer, allegedly. And maybe we're just angling for a free whiskey, but when we go up to the bar, we ask her what she's been working on. I guess I'm trying to write about this, she says, waving tiredly at all the desperate young, beautiful people around us. We get our free whiskey, she gets our email address, and later that week 2 essays show up in our inbox. A record of our attempts, she writes, all the awful striving toward immortality. We are as convinced by these words as we were by Andrew and Ben hopping around in those masks all those years ago, and one thing leads to another. We stop telling people we're washed up. What a relief. We are listening to Time to Pretend for the 415th time. It's noon on a Friday, or it's midnight on a Wednesday. We're alone in our pajamas, or we're in our car driving our date home, and we're just trying to hear the song one final time. We can't really hear it anymore. It just sort of evaporates these days, but it's worth a shot. It's kind of like the bell in the Polar Express. Once upon a time, it was the greatest sounding thing in the world, and thank God we allowed ourselves to believe in it. Thanks.